Hi, I'm Robert Osborne. We have more rare animated shorts from the silent era coming up as we continue celebrating the origins of movie animation here on TCM. Here to give us some background is an authority on the subject, the author of 15 books on animation. He's also a historian at blocker at cartoonbrew.com. He's also a producer, Jerry Beck. Glad you're here, Jerry.
Delighted to be here.
Interesting subject.
Yes.
Now, this new batch of animated shorts include Fireman, Save My Child, The Bomb Idea, Sense and Nonsense, and Springtime. Now, one is from 1919, the rest of them are from the 1920s, right?
Right.
So how had animation changed in that period of time?
It went from being simple comic strips animated, which is what a lot of the cartoons in the teens are. And those cartoons in the teens, including ones that were original, had more of this comic strip come to life thing. They'd have word balloons. You may see some of these in some of the films tonight. Instead of intertitles, they'd have word balloons, like they were just comic strips on the screen. And so now the animators were getting more adventurous. Things were getting more exciting. People like Max Fleischer, Walter Lantz, and Walt Disney were incorporating a live action animation in exciting ways in the silent films. And so everyone, all these studios and all the animators had their own characters and regular series. The 1919 cartoon we're showing is Mutt and Jeff, one of the comic strip adaptations. And that was actually done by Bud Fisher, who was the cartoonist of the comic strip. He set up his own studio to do his cartoons. So having a cartoon come out, I think they came out once a week or every other week back then. They actually would churn them out so that people were they were in demand.
Right. Interesting.
We're also going to see in this block a Crazy Cat cartoon. The interesting thing to note in this cartoon is that by this time, the animators just kind of had their way with the character. The character is a classic. The comic strip is an acknowledged classic with originals hanging in museums by George Harriman. The original cartoons started off as an adaptation of his comic strip. They soon turned into a Felix the Cat-like, since he was a cat, or she was a cat. He was originally Crazy Cat was a girl, and who was in love with Ignatz, the male mouse. By the 20s, the character had kind of morphed into a male character. Don't ask me how or why.
Happens in Hollywood. Yes, indeed.
But it certainly happened on Crazy Cat.
Now, the last one on the list is very different from the others, right?
Well, we're showing Springtime, which is one of the Paul Terry Aesop's fables. This is a little bit later than the Farmer Alfalfa we showed before. And again, it's a great example of the kind of film that they were making back then, just full of humor, gags, and the Aesop's fables had a gimmick where at the end of the film there'd be a little words of wisdom, which would be the punchline of the whole film. And it was that right there made it one of the most popular things in the 1920s. We're also watching The Bomb Idea, which is part of the Jerry on the Job series by J.R. Bray. J.R. Bray is that pioneer of animation that we've talked about, created the cell technique. He had a studio in the 20s that was the studio, it was the hotbed of animation. Either you were an independent who released under Bray, or you worked at his studio. And one of his directors at that time, a young and upcoming artist, was a guy named Gregory LaCava, who later carved out a career in live action.
Yes.
Became very famous.
My man Godfrey.
And he started on these films. So we're going to see one of those tonight.
Interesting. And we should give a shout out again to the man that's responsible for us getting the rights to show
Thomas Stathis in New York has two great websites, cartoonsonfilm.com and the Bray Animation Project, both worth going to.
So we thank Tom for that.
Yes.
And now let's see the films. Here are 4 silent animated shorts, the first from 1919, the rest from the 1920s. Fireman, Save My Child, The Bomb Idea, Sense and Nonsense, and Springtime.